A 9-year-old girl and her mother and older brother visit her new pediatrician in a large private practice. The routine weigh-in shows that the girl is over the 95th percentile for someone of her age and height. In response, the mother shrugs and says that the whole family is on the heavier side, but that it wouldn't hurt to drop a few pounds. The older brother mentions that he heard about something called the paleo diet on some online forums and blogs. He explains that the diet involves going back to our caveman roots by eating more fruit, meat, nuts, and vegetables, and eliminating dairy and grains. The mother now wants to know if the paleo diet is the right way for her family to eat in order to lose weight. What's a doctor to do when confronted with such a request? My name is Florence Yuen, and this is Darwin MD. The patients who walked into our fictional pediatrician's office are not unusual. The National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey in 2016 found that almost 1 in 5 children and teens are obese based on their body mass index, or BMI. This is more common in adults, with almost 40% of grown-ups categorized as obese. Why is it so easy to gain weight and so hard to lose it? Clues may be found in evolutionary medicine. Most of the world is experiencing a mismatch between our evolutionary diet history and our modern eating habits. In fact, if researchers wanted to create perfect conditions for obesity to thrive, they would create our modern lifestyle. First, a disclaimer. This is not an episode on dieting, and we aren't recommending one diet above another. Additionally, our definition of the word diet is used in the context of the sum total of the foods we consume. Now, let's talk about humans' evolutionary history as it relates to diet. What kind of dietary environment did we live in during prehistoric times? Anthropological and cross-cultural studies point to some conclusions. The first conclusion is the most important and the most surprising one. A paleo diet simply didn't exist. Wide variation in climate and available food sources meant that humans in the Paleolithic and Neolithic periods ate different things. Studying traditional diets illustrates this conclusion. Take the Quechua in the high Andes of South America. Their diet is centered on starchy foods such as potatoes and maize. In southern Africa, meanwhile, the Kungsan people dine on the fat-rich mongongo nut as their staple. The Inuit in the far northern latitudes, where edible plants are rare, consume a diet rich in cold water fish and sea mammals. The second conclusion is that no single macronutrient group should be feared or praised. Carbs and fat are not necessarily all bad, and protein is not necessarily all good. All three are necessary in the right balance. The paleo diet emphasizes meat and protein, but the evidence suggests that meat was a rare treat. It's much easier to forage for stationary plants rather than chasing an animal through the forest or savanna. Even the Inuit obtained no more than 40% of their total calories from protein. The third conclusion is that prehistoric humans did the math on consuming the right amount of calories to find and prepare food. Ethnological studies show that they balanced the amount of food they ate with the activity level needed to obtain that food. Yet, here we are today amid an obesity crisis. Cheap, convenient caloric sources have eliminated the need to expend energy looking for enough food to survive. But our brains still motivate us to obtain high carbohydrate and high fat foods as if we were still spending hours every week trying to track down our next meal. We store fat for times of food scarcity, but we don't need it for a trip to a local fast food restaurant. So that fat stays. That leads to a question. How can we outwit our modern diet and return to the balanced diets of our ancestors? Diet fads proliferate in this mismatch between evolution and our modern world. But we know that there is no one right way to eat. No diet is universally beneficial because of variations in genetics, medical history, lifestyle, and personal preferences. And no superfood will satisfy our nutritional needs or fix an otherwise poor diet. A few examples illustrate this profound variability. People who take anticoagulants such as warfarin must avoid dark leafy greens such as kale and spinach because these contain vitamin K, which neutralizes the medication's anti-clotting properties. people with inflammatory bowel diseases, such as Crohn's disease, must avoid whole grains and other high-fiber foods because they are harder to digest, leading to bowel irritation. And people with nut allergies aren't going to load up on almonds, peanuts, and walnuts, no matter how healthy they are. So, diets such as paleo sound simple, but complications are everywhere. Let's return to our 9-year-old patient and her family. Now that we know that a one-size-fits-all diet is out of the question, despite what the internet may tell us, what should we do? The takeaway from this episode can be reduced to 7 words that appeared in a 2008 book by Michael Pollan titled In Defense of Food. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. Nutritional research supports Pollan's 7 words. They should stand as the cornerstone of the advice we present to patients. In particular, plant-based diets have been demonstrated in multiple systematic reviews to have many benefits for health, including lowering cholesterol and blood lipids, decreasing deaths from heart disease and cancer, improving glycemic control for people with diabetes, and facilitating weight loss. We can encourage our patient and her family to incorporate more plant foods into their diet: fruits, vegetables, beans, nuts, seeds, grains, and so on. Outside of those 7 key words, there are 3 additional evidence-based diet guidelines that may be helpful. Number 1, eat whole foods. Foods that have not been prepared or processed before we buy them carry nutrients, fiber, vitamins, and minerals, which are often reduced or eliminated when they are processed. For example, drinking 8 ounces or 236 milliliters of apple juice gets us roughly the same amount of sugar as 2 apples, without the pectin and dietary fiber that helps us feel full. Eating whole foods also keeps us from eating too much, since they usually take up more space in our digestive tract for the same number of calories as processed foods, making us feel fuller faster. For our patient and her family, because they are aiming to lose weight, eating more whole foods can help. Number 2, eat a rainbow of foods. Species diversity is vital not only for environmental health, but for our own health. Diets across the world are becoming increasingly similar, with more and more people eating higher amounts of corn, soy, rice, and wheat compared to other foods. We can encourage our patient and her family to explore foods outside of their comfort zones. Different colors usually indicate different types of vitamins and nutrients, so eating the rainbow helps boost the nutritional value of any diet. Of course, this does not mean our patient should eat a rainbow of processed foods. Guideline number 1 still applies here. Number 3, eat foods which are in season. Traditional diets varied based on the plants and animals which were available at that time, because those foods were fresh, more plentiful, and easier to find. This applies to us too. In-season foods are fresher, taste better, and tend to be more affordable than foods which are out of season. Eating in-season foods can help our patient and her family save money, and they are also more likely to enjoy the taste of these foods in the process. Ultimately, the healthiest diet for each of us can vary wildly, depending on genetic predispositions and environmental factors. There is no one-size-fits-all when it comes to diet. However, with evolutionary medicine principles in mind, we can help ourselves and our patients evaluate diet trends more carefully, and we can use that knowledge to develop diets that work best for us. Thanks for watching Darwin MD. See you in the next episode.